OTB Sports Golf Weekly with Now TV. Stream live football action with a Now TV Sky Sports Pass. Your sport on your terms.
Oh, wow! In your life have you seen anything like that?
I'm a very confident front runner. I've caddied for 33 years, 145 wins now, and that's the best win I've ever had.
I have no idea what you have.
I don't know. How are we going to count all the shots? I can't keep track.
I don't think he's pleased.
Of course I would. That's a particularly stupid question. It's the Irish Open. Of course I want to play at the weekend.
Well, there's no playing this weekend. You're welcome along to Golf Weekly. We are here with thanks, as ever, to our friends at Now TV. You can stream your sport on your terms. The Masters in 3 weeks. We'll be talking about Premier League as well, EFL, Serie A, and very soon the GAA Championship as well, getting underway this weekend. We have much to discuss. Peter Lawrie, good afternoon.
Hello, Joe.
Nathan with us as well. Hello.
Hey, Joe.
And Fionn Davenport over in Manchester. Hello to you.
Hey, Joe.
So somber mood, I think, this week. Country enters level 5. We weren't sure initially what that would mean for golf. We now very much know, and it's causing much rancor, as you can imagine. Peter, I presume you're shut, closed, done for the next 6 weeks at Spawell?
Yeah, we're closed. And really the only way I found out to close was I decided yesterday, in all the confusion, was to ring the Garda station here in Rathfarnham. Because I couldn't get a decision out of anybody whether we should open or close. I had lots of ideas about bringing people through an alternative entrance, which meant that they actually didn't come into a building. And looking at the rules and regulations of COVID-19 or living with COVID-19, where each person can practice alone. They can do a sport alone. So I just presumed that we would be able to fill the bays with people. But as I said to you, I had to ring the Garda station, rang the Garda station. They said, no, you have to close. So with that news, I decided, to make a statement and say we're closing. And then we got the announcement from the GUI stating, or Golf Ireland stating, that golf clubs had to close as well. So it was all very confusing, and yes, unfortunately, we're closed.
That's a huge blow to you, to everyone concerned, I presume.
Well, look, I have 6 guys working for me, so they're now going on to the social welfare, whilst they could be still working. We have a model that is, I think, the only sport, or one of the only sports, where you can you don't have to contact anything. You don't have to be close to anybody. There's plenty of social distancing in golf out in the open air. And even in driving ranges, sure, you're covered on, all it is the rain is not hitting you on the head. Apart from that, there should be no reason why. But unfortunately, we are. And until they decide to change it, which maybe they will, maybe they won't, we will have to stay closed.
They are at the government, Nathan, coming under pressure at the moment.
Sorry, Joe, say that again?
They are coming under pressure at the moment, the government.
They are. I heard Stephen Donnelly, who's the Minister for Health, on with Pat Kenny this morning, saying we are in level 5. We're in a form of lockdown, and level 5 means stay at home whenever you can. They have made some exceptions to that, where they feel there's a low risk for, I guess, maximum reward for people's mental health or people's enjoyment. And I think that's where the Senior Inter-County Championship comes in. That obviously is up for debate as well. But I think Peter's right. A 4-ball going out together in the open air is unlikely to result in any transmission. The question seems to be more around how people get to courses. Are they travelling in cars together? And a general level 5 feeling of, again, stay at home. So any excuse to keep people off the roads, to going to different places, to travelling to other counties, to coming into contact with people that they generally wouldn't come into contact with, they're trying to stop. But I think for so many people, golf was such a crucial outlet. Now, even the best case scenario would have been, I expect, members only within 5 kilometres, which would have caused all sorts of issues away from that. But at least it would have allowed some people in. And I know I've played little or no golf. I was meant to play this morning, so was one of the more disappointed. But like talking to my mother-in-law, who's in her early 70s, and she plays 2-3 times a week, and it is her number one and really only social outlet for the last 6 months. She was very calm about the level 5 restrictions coming in because she thought, actually, I'll have that. I have a very small circle anyways, which is essentially my family that she sees. And away from that, she plays golf. They don't go inside. Even when they could, they went straight back to the car, had a conversation there, and that's gone for 6 weeks and for the foreseeable future. So, and that's an awful lot of people. That is a huge percentage of people who are really going to struggle now because of this over the next 6 weeks.
Yeah. Fionn?
I could name 10 people who come into the range on a regular basis who will have a bucket of balls and a cup of tea and a cup of coffee, and they will chat to me or they will chat to one of the lads here, and that will be their only conversation in the day. Full stop. Only conversation. So a bit of exercise and only conversation. So never mind, you have to think of, they talk about this thing of mental health and all the rest. And yes, we have to live with this virus, but we have to be able to have a more mental health issue on it. The parks are full of people walking around. There's more people in parks than there is on golf courses. So really, and to be honest with you, people will say, oh, Lawrie's on there beaten down because he's losing money. I really couldn't give a damn about the money. It's got nothing to do with the money. It's got nothing to do with about having a business or not having a business. To me, it's not. It's about the people who come into the driving range. And I know Fionn slagged me off a good while ago about the driving range being like a pub, which unfortunately, or fortunately, should I say, it is, because people come in there for social more than anything else. It's not about improving their golf.
I don't think I was slagging you off. I think I was making a really beautiful reference.
It was
you were like
fun.
You were like
it was
Cheers.
Yeah,
coming to your driving range is like going into Cheers. Norm. I think. I think it's hard to disagree with Peter or Nathan. I think in politics, perception trumps truth. And that old adage that Caesar's wife must be seen to be above reproach. It doesn't matter if she is above reproach, she must be seen to be so. And I think that Golfgate, and for any listener unfamiliar, it's when the Parliamentary Golf Society had a big do at Galway Golf Club a couple of months ago with a number of high-profile guests, all seemingly breaking lockdown rules and social distancing regulations. That has burnt the government's hands. And I think that when dealing with the admittedly borderline issue of golf clubs, I 100% agree with Nathan. I think the idea of a 3 or a 4 ball, or even you could do what they did at the beginning when they first loosened up the lockdown restrictions, where you could say only go out, I think it was in 2 balls. Dealing with that in the aftermath of Golfgate, that the government, rather than go with health, I think went with politics and opted not to include golf or the playing of golf, however restricted, as you said, whether it's members only, within 5K, 2 balls only, et cetera, and made what can be seen as a politically expedient decision. Certainly that would be my read, and regrettably so, but understandable from, if you were an advisor to Stephen Donnelly and you were going, look, Jesus, you're risking a lot of political capital chucking golf after Golfgate, which hasn't even really abated because some of the key players in Golfgate have yet to account for their behaviour, nominally member of the Supreme Court, Seamus Wolfe, who has yet to give an explanation of his participation in Golfgate. So that's lingering. And I just think that I think the government made a politically expedient decision rather than one based on hard fact and science.
I think Eamon Ryan made the decision by mistake when asked in the press conference, would golf courses be open? And he very, very quickly said, no, they'd be closed.
Oh, right. Okay.
Without actually thinking about it.
But I think there's nothing open. So tennis thought they were going to be able to open, but it now seems tennis isn't going to be able to open. Like, aside from the inter-county football championship, there haven't really been too many exceptions. So they've clearly decided that they don't want people travelling distances. And like Fionn's 100% right, there is an impression of golf that was always there, that was reinforced by Golfgate. There have been other issues. There was a golf club near Dublin that's been reported in the last few weeks that had a captain's prize, and the captain was from Dublin. He was in a different county, but he travelled down. Lots of other people from Dublin travelled down. So they were going across county borders, which wasn't allowed. So while I think the vast majority have upheld the spirit of what the rules have been, unfortunately, at times, I think golf probably hasn't helped itself. And unfortunately, that has really been honed in on. And aside from the golf community, and this is a golf podcast, I don't see much sympathy. But then I don't see much sympathy for anybody. So I don't see any sympathy for people who enjoy Gaelic games at the Inter-County Championship. Everybody, there's a feeling that we must all suffer together, and any outlet. So if golf opens, tennis probably has to open. And if tennis opens, well, should basketball come back? Like, where does it end? Is it just golf that should get an exception?
Yeah. No, I think Nathan, that's a very, very fair point. I think it is worth pointing out, though, that the perception, I mean, there is, and look, golf is always perceived as the sport of the 5%. It's always perceived as the sport. Those who love golf are absolutely in love with the game. Those who don't play golf or don't care about golf find it the most boring and ridiculous sport in the world. And it was ever thus. However, it is worth pointing out that in Ireland, perhaps with the sole exception of Scotland, golf is a more democratized game than any other place on earth. Outside of the kind of the fancy clubs, and Dublin does have a few, virtually every town in Ireland has a golf course for which membership is not particularly expensive or necessarily exclusive. It is a game that is played universally. There, I think, I think there's over 360 golf courses in Ireland. And
420.
420, there you go. Okay. And so, when making the case for golf, and I think it is worth remembering that we're not talking about US type golf. This isn't a golf played by, 2% of the elites. This is a golf that is universally loved across the board. Now, not everybody likes it, obviously, but it's a pastime that has universal appeal throughout the country. And I think when making this argument, and I absolutely take Nathan's point, is that, like, where do you draw the line? But golf is way more popular than tennis. So,
yeah, I agree with that. I play golf competitions, open comps all the time, 2-3 times a week sometimes, especially during this summer. And the average person I meet is not of the elite. Far from it. So the perception of golf does not apply to Ireland. I mean, there's huge frustration out there, and it's so understandable. And it's such a sad time. Like, it's really hit me the last couple of days. 6 weeks is a serious stint for everyone. I was reading Philip Reid's piece in the Irish Times, and he was talking to David O'Donovan, the general manager at Ross's Point, and he said that Wednesday evening was spent making layoffs. That's your starting point here. That's the cost. These people are now being let go, and we did this before for 4 weeks. It ended up being 9. Suddenly, again, we're doing it for 6. These people have families, have children to feed, and it's very, very difficult. And then he talked to various other golf clubs. Galway Golf Club, the general manager there, was just at a loss, saying it's 160 golfers, 10-minute intervals on a 100-acre site, 70 on the course at one time. It's hard to reconcile. Like, it is. But I do take Nathan's point as well. We are at level 5. We're meant to be staying at home. We are meant to be staying at home. I think what hasn't helped is the communication. So there is, unlike in March when there was a real degree of certainty about the thing, it now feels like we're at the whim of politics. And I agree with everything Fionn said about the politics of this situation. But for instance, on Thursday, so just a week ago, it feels like a month ago, the Taoiseach, who has been Taoiseach during this and will be Taoiseach again very soon and has a medical background, was asked straight out on national radio, for instance, will there be GAA at level 5? And he didn't say, oh, maybe, or we'll have to see, or we'll have to look at the numbers. He said, no, like there won't be. And that made news. We talked about it on Thursday, Nathan. I remember that night, like, wow, it's off. 4 days later, it's on again. And so there is a wiggle room, clearly. And so from a golfing point of view, when you see that wiggle room applied to something and not to golf, that makes it all the more difficult to accept. And I think it's a communications issue as well. And that's the reason there's so much ire. Like there's this degree of, well, why that and not this? And
I think sport gets a huge amount of focus as well, in maybe a disproportionate amount of focus around all of this, that how could Leo Varadkar misspeak in such a way? How is he not totally on top of his brief? Now, clearly he should be. And he has a track record at this stage of misspeaking and going out in a solo run. But it's a big old economy and sport is only one part of it. But it probably gets spoken about far more than every other part. And listen, it can't end up being, it feels like it is getting into an us against them. And listening and reading Philip Reed's piece about the layoffs, like it is heartbreaking for so many of those people. But there's a good chunk of the population who are going, hello, I've been laid off for the last 6 months and there hasn't been this level of bleating for whatever. Listen, I know that the Vintners Federation are very good at getting out there and telling just how difficult it's been for them. But there's an awful lot of people in an awful lot of industries that aren't getting spoken about in the way that the golf industry is. And unfortunately, that's just the way it's going to be. But I think you're right in the lack of information is another issue that, and this is where a general frustration is kicking in over the last few weeks, that, right, we all accept that in March, this was unknown. We went into lockdown. It was very, very difficult. It did huge damage to the economy. But there was a sense of, let's get through this. Let's get through the summer and everything will be in a better position. We'll have so much more information. We will have prepared the health service, and that when things need to be closed down, they will be done in a full, open, transparent way of, well, actually, the reason we're closing golf courses is you may think there have been no infections, but we have proved that this amount of outbreaks have taken place from people traveling to golf courses are actually spending 20 minutes in each other's company in the rain. But that's not there. So we've no idea. I have no idea.
That is the point. That's my frustration. And just to finish up on the point I was making, like on Varadkar, I take your point about the brief and sport's place in it. But equally, this was the guy who 10 days previously was on Clareburn doing a solo run to shoot down Neffet. So it's not like he's been conservative all the way and his point on GA was just him being conservative again. I mean, he'd been practically cavalier a few days before and then he's saying, oh, GA can't continue. So like, again, all over the shop. And, you know, he should be on top of his brief. But I think that your point is the key one. And it would solve all the issues. Like I voiced concern about the GA Championship on Tuesday. In part, it was based on Bevan Duffy's interview from Louth. Like, here's a player who is a bit freaked out, I would say. You know, like we're talking about the mental health benefits of GA. But let's make sure that players are being looked after. First of all, this was a guy who's concerned, who's talking about people working in classrooms, living with elderly parents, no tests. Now, Mary Horgan was on OTB AM from CUH saying the testing actually isn't that beneficial in this environment because they're in the community anyway. But Bevan Duffy didn't know that, and he's carrying that stress. So, you know, that was one of the reasons I brought up the GA Championship. But the key point should be this, and it would take away all the emotion. It would take away all the, you know, rancor on Twitter and everything else. Information, i.e., how many cases have come from golf over the last X number of months? What are the figures that Neffet are basing their decision on? And similarly with GA, what are the figures that Neffet are basing their decision on? And that would just end all the argument. And everybody could look at it and say, fair enough. But at the moment, we're in this vacuum where through the prism of our own individual experience, we're trying to figure out how dangerous golf is and how dangerous GA is based on just the small little snippets we've seen. And I think in that vacuum, it's no wonder that like golf is feeling hard done by and GA feels under attack. And, you know, that's the mess that we're in now.
That's a very good point. Although, can I just say, try be a freelancer living in the northwest of England, where it's not
travel
just,
writer.
Yeah, absolutely.
Things are good, are they, Fionn?
Self-employed travel writer living in Manchester. Absolutely, no problems. I mean, it goes back to, I was watching and Leo Varadkar absolutely should have been on top of his brief. The message should have been uniform. But, these are... I want times to be precedented, not unprecedented. But like, in comparison, I can't say, I read the Italian newspapers, for instance, and you hear the same argument echoed there. Lack of information, lack of consistency in messaging. One day it's this science, the next day it's this other science. And obviously Britain, I'd make an argument that Britain is in much crazier place in many ways than Ireland, that I look almost enviously at the uniformity of the message that comes across in Ireland compared to here, where naked politics just is absolutely a play, not to bore anybody, but the negotiations of what kind of funding would be given Greater Manchester once it goes into this top tier of lockdown was just astonishing, I have a certain amount of sympathy for the government.
Oh, yeah.
I really do, in the bread and circuses argument as well, is that if you're going to ask an entire population to do something that is absolutely unheralded and really, really difficult for the second time this year, is we need to offer them, we need to offer them some kind of circus as well as the bread. And I think the GAA Championship is that, and golf, unfortunately, is not.
We should remember, Joe, that there's always winners as well from, difficulties for other people. And right now, Golf Weekly is a winner because we have a lot of people watching and we have a lot of people getting in touch.
Oh, good, yeah.
I'll go through some of them. And actually, I was wondering this as well, about ranges closing, Peter, because individual training is allowed. And is going to our driving range not technically individual training?
That's what I thought, Nathan. And there is one or two driving ranges still open out there. But the information that I got from An Garda Síochána was that I had to close. And if I didn't close, they would come and close me. So that's why we made the decision to close. But you're right, that's the way I read it. Individual training was allowed.
Should have stayed open with whatever additional safety measures it was felt needed. Maximum 2 balls, 15, 20 minutes apart, whatever, even if it was members only. Another one from Andrew Fitzgerald. GUI need to publish what they proposed to Sport Ireland and why it was rejected. No evidence of COVID cases, community outbreaks in golf clubs. The GAA met with NEFID in advance and conceded club games were a problem, but inter-county was not. GAA was proactive. The GUI haven't really issued anything aside from that quite short statement saying that following intensive engagement over the last 48 hours, we've been informed this afternoon by Sport Ireland that very regrettably golf clubs must close under level 5 restrictions. Essential maintenance is permitted. They're still seeking clarity, it seems, on whether ranges and practice facilities can remain open for exempted activities, and they're going to try and update as soon as possible. Maybe it is helpful if the GUI released that, or maybe it was 48 hours of intensive negotiations that they were simply never coming to win, that this was there, as Peter said, and Ryan said it straight away, that there was no coming back, that they did as much convincing as you could possibly do, but there simply was no winning on this.
Yeah, could I just make one point, and I have to. I've probably bashed them before, but I'm not going to bash them now. I'm actually going to. I'm going to say, the GUI and the Ladies Golfing Union, really had their hands tied here. I don't believe they did a bad job. I don't believe they could do anything. They're a body that are pretty much told what to do rather than being involved in the decision making. And what I would love to know is where Sport Ireland and the government are. That's where the information, I think, lies. The GUI, or Golf Ireland as it now is called, really had their hands tied here, in my viewpoint. And if they say, boo, people say, oh, they said too much or they said too little. I'd love to hear who actually made the decision. Because are you sure?
Yeah, I think they gave written advice over to the government. I think it's published. So they said
golf should close.
Yeah, they highlighted the exceptions, and golf wasn't one of them. So in effect, the golf should close. Yeah, so NEFID made the decision. Yeah.
Okay, because I listened to that same interview this morning with Stephen Donnelly, and really, I don't know of another sport where you talk about tennis or basketball or whatever. I don't know another sport that you can play without touching somebody else or touching the ball of somebody else or having, any contact with your playing partner or whatever that's out there. So I'd love to hear Neffet's theory behind this.
I was speaking to somebody last night who is working in the medical profession who made the point that they were on contact tracing duty a while back and did have to make a couple of phone calls which were golf related. But again, the point is that is anecdotal, tiny snapshot in time. If we just had big picture information, then the numbers I think would give us the clues. Like the other point to remember, everybody's really disappointed, obviously, and golf is nobody's absolute priority, but it meant a lot to a lot of people, probably me included. Even if we went to 5K or 10K, that still rules out, I think, the majority of people who play their golf. Like I'm over 20K from Killeen Castle, so I'm not playing golf whether this has changed or not. I think in the main, we are at level 5. 5K, even if it's overturned, is still going to rule out the vast majority of players. I mean, there is a just suck it up and get on with it element to this thing, unfortunately, as well. We're not meant to leave our homes if we can possibly avoid it. So you just have to try and get back into the mindset of going for your daily walk, as grim as it is, and we just have to get on with that. Who I feel really sorry for are the people who work in golf clubs. And for yourself, Peter, like I do, that's the real kicker. We all love to play our golf for sure. But where I think this period is very difficult now is for people who work in the industry and feel that it could safely continue and it's not. And they'll resentfully watch the things that are happening and think, why us? And I don't have an easy answer to that one. Like if you're missing your golf, missing playing your golf, I'm one of you. We just get on with it. Practice your putting on the carpet. And, Nathan, your mother-in-law, that's seriously tough as well. But it's the people working in the industry who would be looking at other things continuing and feeling it's needless that they're suffering so much. That's where I think, there's no easy answer to that. That's going to be there'll be a lot of anger. There really will.
I blame Nathan. He jinxed me last week. He said he said I had found this impossible situation and I was actually making money out of it, and then it just went all tits up.
Any other
comments? Listen, I think you're right. And the other issue for golf clubs, like so many other businesses, how do you plan for 2021? So like last week I was talking about considering joining a club and what club I should join. And thanks to all the people who got in touch, still no word from Adair Manor. That's just fine. But straight away, when this came out, well, why would I join right now? Because am I going to hand over 1,500 quid and I might get 3 weeks out of it? At least 1,500 quid. And you get 3 weeks out of it and they might shut us down again in the middle of January for 2 months. And maybe you get the summer out of it. Who knows? But I'm sure there's an awful lot of people, as much as there's been a huge increase in participation, clubs are also reliant on having the clubhouse open, on being able to make money there. How many months next year can they guarantee that the clubhouse is going to be open? It's practically impossible for them, like a lot of businesses, to plan. So while unfortunately they're packing up today for the next 6 weeks, nobody can make a guarantee that they're going to be back open again on the 1st of December.
Not a chance, no.
If anything, the word seems to be we'll come out of this for Christmas and then infections will climb back up again to maybe 300 a day, and then we'll be into lockdown again in the spring.
Well, even this morning it was, level 5 for everybody right now. And maybe when we're coming out of it, it might be by region or it might be by county again. So be on your best behaviour.
So Nathan, let's hear the golf clubs who are bidding for you as a
No, I couldn't do such
member.
a thing. I couldn't do such a thing
because I believe Newlands were courting you very, very, very well.
I was being offered
free lessons
free lessons and everything from a good Mayo man.
Yeah, Brian Cosgrave.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
I'm thinking of from Casablanca, when Humphrey Bogart turns around to Ingrid Bergman and he goes, Ilse, I'm no good at being noble, but it doesn't take much to see that the problem of 3 little people don't amount to a hill of beans in this crazy world.
It's a brilliant quote. struggling with it, but
yeah.
Any other comments coming in, Nathan, before we leave lockdown?
Peter, I think my comments from last week still stand. If somehow it comes out over the next 24, 48 hours that the range can open, you've got half the country with nothing to do for the next 6 weeks. All the golf courses shut. Little bit of business advice: just double your fees straight away. People are going to pay us.
I was really going to go last night. I texted my wife to say, what about we give away balls from 9 to 10 for free as a
mood booster?
As a mood booster.
But isn't the whole idea is that you're trying to not attract crowds?
That's exactly what she said to me. And she said, no, you can't do that.
Front page of the Irish Times is a queue of 500 people outside Stamford.
Giveaway.
And
yeah.
Peter, can I say this respectfully? And, I've been to your place and I know you're doing things properly. When you talk there about people coming in for their cup of tea or cup of coffee and standing around talking, I would think that's the very thing government ultimately don't want.
Well, see, both doors are wide open, right? And I'm standing behind the counter, which has glass on it, and we're having a 5-minute conversation about Jim's wife who is suffering from Alzheimer's, and he gets out of the house for 20 minutes to hit a few balls, and his world is coming to an end. So that's what I'm talking about.
Okay, fair enough. Nathan, last comment or two and we'll get out of it.
Lots about the GAA, and that's what this is becoming, a us v them. GAA going ahead is a calculated risk, going to be losing half the teams each week, so the number of people actually competing and training will drop along with the risk, which I think is a fair point. Chris saying one of the hilarious arguments for GAA Championship going ahead was giving people something to watch, not even to benefit the 30 players on the pitch. There's endless sport on TV. James Burke reckons that there'll be a few figures in quotation marks released in the next couple of days about clusters in golf clubs to back up their point, which may well happen as well. James O'Donoghue says protocols in place for the last 4 months. Locker rooms are all closed. Social distancing in place. You can't touch the flagstick. There's no rakes and bunkers. Can't be on site until 10 minutes before your tee time. Golf clubs couldn't have done any more. Sport Ireland need to publish their logic behind closing.
I think that's a very good point.
Strange that I can meet my mate for a walk on the pier with all the rest of Dunleary, but we can't go for a walk on a 100-acre golf club and swing the odd club, which again, I think is fair enough, because just early this morning I was down in Marley Park, which is 2-3 miles from where you are in Spawell, and surrounded by golf clubs at every possible juncture. There's probably 10 of them within a couple of miles, and it was wedged. It was full of people. I haven't seen it as busy, and I got stuck in a traffic jam outside it last Sunday where the entire road, every side of it, was backed up with people going to the park because it's the only outlet they have right now. So we are in a situation where there are lots and lots of people actually gathering outdoors.
I think that the behavioural science will become a factor in this, because if you think back to March, April, May, we were told stay in your homes and go out for a short walk and then get back into your homes. And I think by and large people did that. But fatigue has set in. I suspect the scene you painted in Marley Park will continue. People will be out plenty. And so if that's how people are treating lockdown 2.0, then that strengthens the argument you might as well have golf courses open. Stephen Donnelly saying today on Pat Kenny, look, we want you to stay at home. If the behavioural science now suggests that won't happen, then actually safe outlets for people might be a better way to go. And that'll emerge in the coming weeks as well.
I think that is, I think the big difference, while people, and we're in a fortunate position, some of us so far haven't lost our jobs, that you go, oh, well, at least you can get out. At least it's different in March. At least they can go to the park with the kids. At least they can meet up with one of their mates in the park and play a little bit of football. At least they can go to soccer training. At least there's all this sport on TV. It feels like a very different thing, that people are far more relaxed. And I do wonder if that percentage of the population who are not at risk but are probably these super spreaders are going to take a huge amount of notice of this, that the people in their late teens, early 20s are going to give a damn about this. And I'm not being critical, because I know if I was 21 in the middle of this and I'd gone through 6 months and it's 6 weeks before Christmas and I'm in college, I'm thinking I'm out there.
Sorry, Fionn, could you remind us what was it like in Italy in the first lockdown for them?
For them, well, the lockdown was much stricter than anything that we had in Ireland or in the UK. in that you were only allowed to leave your home for 2 reasons. One, to go to the shop, or to go to a doctor. That was it, and it was really severe. And I know from my own mother, who spent whatever it was, the 2.5 months, I think it was 2.5 months, just sitting at home, isolated from everybody. It was a very taxing experience. And though she's a very positive person and has an ability to kind of find always something to do, but I know it was really, really difficult. Look, I realize that this is none of us is experts in this field, but the spectre hanging over all of it is this: to what end? All of this, to what end? What's next? I mean, if
by time for a vaccine that we hope is coming, I think, isn't that?
But when most experts concede that a vaccine isn't available for quite a ways off yet.
Sorry. The end is maybe around this very time next year.
Sure, they're vaccinating people in China as we speak.
Well, here's the thing, and I speak
Peter,
as someone
who step up there and volunteer.
Peter, did you see that on your Facebook feed? Come on.
Oh, I swear to God, they are. They are vaccinating people as we speak.
Here's the thing, and I speak as someone who has lost all my employment as a travel writer. There is no work. I haven't worked. I've done little patches of work sporadically over the last 7 or 8 months, and I'm staring into a winter of nothing. Okay. So it's not that I'm very conscious of the balance between health, safety, protecting the community, et cetera, but also as well as I have to ask some very serious questions. And that question for me is that sure, I am willing to do whatever it takes, but at what cost? And I think there are, I think that's it. To what end? This idea, if a vaccine was going to be made available in February, then people go, sure, yeah, absolutely, we can all kind of hold together. But there is no guarantee of a vaccine. So what are we going to do? Repeated lockdowns for another year, another 2 years?
Well, Micheál Martin effectively said that's pretty much the strategy,
But frankly, that's crazy. Well, that's crazy.
He played it as our 2 options are to go for zero COVID, which he said with 2 jurisdictions in the country and given our geographical location, that's not possible. And he said the other is a form of herd immunity, and we ain't going down that route. So that leaves us in and out of lockdown in effect, as in we open things up when it's being suppressed and we close things back down when it's getting on top of us. So that is the policy, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Well, as I said, look, my epidemiology degree didn't really pan out the way I would hope, and so I don't have a solution. I really don't, and I don't want to lend my voice to the chorus of angry people who just yell into the void, going, "Oh, we should be." But having said all of that, it scares the absolute shit out of me. I'm not going to lie.
Well, on that note, I think move on.
Well, actually, Joe. One final note, because the GUI have been in touch.
Oh, right.
In the last couple of moments, just to say that the Department of Sport expert group are meeting today, and they won't be commenting until they have published a report or updated the GUI. So they obviously are also waiting for the full explanation as to why golf courses have to shut.
I would say I think the GUI have handled this very well. It does not look good for them in the context of people dying to be going to war on this publicly. I think they're doing the right thing, and it's difficult.
That was my vote. I think they got unfairly hammered yesterday.
No.
And I'm not going to do that. But on a positive note, golf courses are open in Northern Ireland.
And here in the UK, they're open.
Well, we can't leave our county, Peter. So.
We're essential worker. Have you got your letter, Joe? So there's obviously, I'd say, a pretty sparse.
So a lot of outside broadcasts happening over the next while, I imagine.
Royal County Down, we are coming your way. Live. We could do next week's show from Royal County Down.
Yeah, sure.
It's genius.
Imagine the vitriol coming our way. Yeah. So, 3 weeks to the Masters. For the 3rd consecutive week, a top 20 player in the world forced to withdraw because of a positive COVID-19 test. Last week, it was Dustin Johnson. Before that, it was Tony Finau. Now, Adam Scott is the latest. So, it would seem, odds are, that players are going to miss the Masters. The interesting discussion at the moment on the PGA Tour is fans. So officials in Bermuda and Houston over the next 2 weeks are going to let fans on the property. Phil Mickelson, against it. He said, for me personally, I don't like the risk that having this happen the week before the Masters brings. I feel like the week before the Masters, huge tournament, I don't want any risks heading in there. He did say, I think they'll do a safe job, 2,000 people at the Houston Open, etc., but he's not for this. McIlroy, a bit more open to it. He said, I'm more comfortable with it now than I was, say, back when we were going to play at the Memorial in July. So that's where they are. They're going to have fans back on the PGA Tour over the next 2 weeks. As I understand it, there still won't be patrons at Augusta, but that's where we are. I guess, Nathan, it's inching towards a bit of normality. 2,000 fans spread across the golf course isn't a huge number.
No, funny, we had a comment in on that of, would you be a bit mad to play a couple of weeks out from the Masters when there is going to be an increased risk? If there are 2,000 people, there's more of a risk than if there's nobody there.
Bill's going to dodge Houston for that reason. He's going to play the Champions Tour that week.
Be three for Phil.
Yeah.
Get your money, yeah.
I don't think you're going to get good odds on Phil winning any Champions Tour events for the foreseeable future. I wonder what it's doing for his confidence. It'll be interesting. Does he turn up actually feeling quite good about life now when he's back playing on the regular tour? That, you know, I'm winning tournaments. I'm the best of everybody else. I suppose they want to bring fans back, so it's going to have to start at some stage. It is whether 2 weeks out from the Masters is the right time to go and do it, and is it actually going to have an effect on the fields? Are they going to be more like Phil Mickelson, who think, I would like to play the week before the Masters, but the extra element of risk just isn't worth it?
Yeah.
I'd be disappointed to see fans back, because you'll have to listen to the garbage that they come out with. At least when you're watching the golf, you're actually interested in player caddy, conversations, or when they hit it, you're expecting the, for you know what sake, what was I thinking there? You get none of that anymore. You just get some idiot shouting, you get in the hole or whatever.
It's got to be a different now, though. There won't be beer flowing.
No, absolutely not. And yet, last Saturday morning, I got up and just turned on Sky Sports to watch the New Zealand-Australia match, played in front of 40-odd thousand people at Eden Park. No masks, no nothing. And I'm not making any comparisons between us and New Zealand. I'm just saying is that the spectacle of sport played under, quote, normal circumstances was so lovely. It was really, really lovely. And a reminder of what we miss, all good and bad aside, Baba Booey, dickheads and all, it doesn't matter. It was just, after months and months and months of nothing, I was just like, oh my God, that was amazing. It was lovely to watch. And, obviously if fans can come back safely, I'd be very happy to see fans on the golf course.
I'll be interested to see how they do it. Like, they could very easily say to 2,000, well, there are 18 fairways, 18 greens. These are the designated slots. They may even have seats or markings, and you stand at one of them, and we can't have all 2,000 of you following Tiger.
Well,
so
no.
that's.
But I wanna.
I paid 500 quid for my ticket. I think I'll follow Tiger.
I'm gonna follow. Yeah.
It will be interesting at the Masters, because again, the brilliance of the Masters is the familiarity and the noise, and every part of it builds into the experience of the 4 days. And that when you're watching somebody on the 10th, that if there's this huge roar, it means somebody's probably eagled 13, and that's not going to be there. And just the stony silence, maybe it suits the property to have that sort of stony silence, but that'll be a bit peculiar as well.
How weird will it be to watch players come onto the 12th tee without that massive gallery of patrons?
We won't recognise the golf course.
Yeah, I think they'll have.
Recognise it.
It's exactly right. I think, Peter, you're dead right. I think the commentators will have an added job of explaining where we are. Yeah, like, on here, look, this is the 12th. This is what the 12th looks like to the members.
Yeah, 16. What's over there on the left-hand side? Oh, it's a hill.
Yeah. Absolutely.
The Zozo Championship is on this week. It was obviously in Japan last year, so it's a no-cut field of 78. Sherwood Country Club, California, Jack Nicklaus design. This is the World Challenge Tiger Woods event, which was on for about 13 years. It's stopped now. So this will be the chance to see where Woods is at. Has won 5 times on this course at that World Challenge event in 13 years. He comes into this event, just to sum up his year, 1 top 10 finish and then nothing else inside the top 30. So if Woods is going to make any kind of charge at Augusta, where he's about 25-1 as defending champion at Augusta, this will be a really good litmus test. This course suits him and has suited him. Does anyone think he's going to come in with a top 5? Peter, Lawrie?
No chance.
Good.
You might as well say it as it is. You know, look, I was totally wrong last year in the Masters. Totally wrong. Guy just turned it all around, won the Masters. Unbelievable. I just don't see it. I just don't see how he can. He's not the same person he used to be when he could play one tournament out of in a month or within 2 months and turn up and be ready to compete. He seems to have now a few rounds under his belt to get anyway close to contention. So I just don't see it.
Yeah, I still feel he has performances in him. I know, Joe, you've been going with the sort of he's been playing sneakily good line for the last little while, and obviously didn't happen for him then at the US Open. But this is the type of course that is a good test of. Like, I could definitely see him getting a top 10, putting together 4 rounds. He doesn't look like a player who's in a lot of pain, which is a positive. And come on, Peter, turn off the phone. Bloody hell.
Sorry about that.
Yeah, I can't believe it's 10 years since GMAC beat him in the playoff.
That was one of the
10 years. Oh, it was such an unbelievable finish. I was watching it back yesterday. And again, it's a strange course where there never seemed to be hundreds of thousands of people at it. But, oh my, it was like GMAC was at the peak of his powers. Yeah. He's a major champion and he's taken down Tiger at a time. I know Tiger is he post-troubles? Yeah, he is. Yeah, he is post-troubles at that stage, yeah. But hadn't won in a while. And there was still a sense of, one of our guys is taken down the best there's ever been. This sense of enormous pride that McDowell is out there beating Tiger Woods. Oh, it was such a brilliant tournament. And the weird thing is, I'm fairly sure that World Challenge at that stage had like 12 players playing in it.
I was like, yeah.
It was ridiculous.
Less than 50 for sure.
He has taken them all down. All 11 other players, 8 of whom were out of contention after 2 rounds.
Woods hasn't played since the US Open. The fear we had in the US Open was his putting had been horrific in the weeks leading up to the US Open. And then at the US Open, his putting was really good, but he couldn't get to grips with the course, and there was obviously a lack of sharpness. But he had been playing better tee to green in the previous few weeks. So at different times, the game tee to green has been there, and then at the US Open, the putting was there. Course didn't suit him. That is why, Fionn, I am holding out a smidgen of sincere hope he'll have a top 5 finish at this course, which he likes. Obviously, it all needs to come together. But there's just something I'm not quite willing to let him go yet.
A little confirmation bias, maybe. Is it a little confirmation bias?
For sure. Oh, like, I want to be proven right. There's like, that's 85%.
See, the thing is reluctantly, I would have to agree with Peter in terms that, like, when he won the Masters last year, as remarkable an accomplishment as it unquestionably was, it came with visible form. You know, he'd won the Tour Championship. He was on a run. A run, for a guy that nobody expected to ever show up anywhere again in a major. He'd won the Tour Championship and showed some form, which has deserted him uniformly since then. And despite, some stats that show good performances in some aspects of his game at various tournaments, the overriding one is his 1 top 10 and then nothing else, and if he doesn't show, like, I would say if he got a top 20 at this, I think that would be good enough to say, you know what, there's life in the old dog yet. But I wouldn't hold it. A fool and his money is easily parted if you're gonna bet on Tiger this week.
To glance back, because McIlroy is playing this week again. The only Irish involvement is McIlroy at the CJ Cup. and we can touch on Jason Kokrak in a moment.
Jeez,
but
yeah.
McIlroy finished tied for 21st. He led the field in driving. It was his approach play which killed him and has been. So I saw on CBS, Kyle Porter said in his last 13 rounds, McIlroy has lost strokes to the field with his iron play in 7 of them.
I saw the same stat. Yeah.
Did you? Okay, so that was the issue again last week. He led the field in driving, but the iron play killed him. And Nick Faldo has always maintained, we talk about Rory's putting. He says it's what's killed him around Augusta has been the wedge play and the approach play. So I don't know. I didn't see much last week, but based on that stat, he hasn't quite sorted that out ahead of Augusta Fionn. I don't know. Did you see much?
Yeah, but he played well. I mean, yeah, he for like 63 holes. Actually, Rory played quite well. He had a 5 over back 9 on Sunday. Like he kind of just lost it on the back 9. He played well, but it's that stat. Kyle Porter's stat is exactly that his iron play has let him down. And to lose for a player of his ability and his ball striking purity, to lose strokes to the field consistently in 7 of 13 rounds is an indicator that not all is well. And look, like, here's the thing. Let's take 2 completely opposite propositions. Proposition 1, Rory McIlroy has an issue with his irons that despite his best efforts, he still hasn't been able to fix. Proposition number 2, Rory McIlroy is one of the most talented, natural, brilliant golfers of his generation. Therefore, a fix isn't that far away. He's going to knuckle down and be ready for the Masters. Both are equally possible. And, short of actually getting a goop at Rory's practice regimen, I have no idea. But my tendency is to think is that, like, we have been talking about poor approach play for a considerable amount of time. And by poor approach play, I mean poor approach play for a player of his caliber. And it's now become kind of a worrying concern, certainly for Rory watchers and Rory lovers. So, Peter?
I would agree with you. I think he was up there last week, and yeah, you're right. He had last 5 holes where things happened, 3 putts and a couple of other bad mistakes. But in general, his game is it's okay. And we talk about his putting previous to this, and he seems to have improved that. But you're right, and Faldo is right in the way that his approach play needs to be, dialed in. Monty, in his heyday, was probably one of the best players ever to hit it pin high. Langer, something similar. And that's where Rory needs to be. I'd love to see him hitting it pin high more than he does. He seems to have this way shorter, way long miss. I wouldn't mind if it was left and right, but it was pin high. And that's what he has to do. That's where he has to improve. If he's going to win Augusta, and he has 2 chances over a very short period of time, one major after the other. That's the thing. He has to start hitting it pin high.
Wasn't that always what they said about Tiger? That, like, even if Tiger was a bit errant off the tee, that they always knew that the signs were there that Tiger was going to contend on any given week if in the first round that he was hitting irons pin high. And, you mentioned Monty. I mean, has there ever been a better player, certainly in our lifetime, that hits it pin high like Tiger at his best?
No. No. And it was one of the, when I really played well in my career, and short as it was, I was very good at hitting it pin high. So on your good days, you'd hit it stone dead. You'd have 3 or 4 kick-ins in and around. And if you have that, it makes round of golf very easy.
Just on what you're saying, Fionn, of the 2 possibilities, I guess, with Rory. So, like, we're talking about his approach play, which then feeds into his putting, and an awful lot comes onto his focuses on his putting, and like, his game off the tee is so good that you would say, well, if his approach play improves and he has a good week at Augusta, he's going to be right there in contention. And we would say that a lot with a lot of golfers on their putting. If they putt well at Augusta, the rest of the game is in such good shape, they'll probably win the tournament. Is it a lot harder, Peter, to have a good week with your approach game compared to your putting, and actually, like, is that just a freak when it's a good week putting, or is there something, the work you have to do to ensure that he goes to Augusta and actually his approach play is in better shape? Like, you can't just go there and hope for the best.
No, not at all. No, look, he just needs to, and I know he does do it. He works on TrackMan quite a lot, and dialing in numbers. I watched on Twitter, or I think it was Twitter, where they were showing him increasing his swing speed to see could he, get up there with Bryson, or if he had it in the bag, if he needed it. I would love if he forgot all that and actually, really, really concentrated on hitting his wedge 130, 135, 138, 137. You know what I mean? Nearly be able to close his eyes and calling out the number that the ball goes. And that's what the really, really best players can do. They can literally tell you to the half yard after hitting a 6-iron how far it's gone, because they know yourself with the strike and how you've hit it, exactly how far it's gone. And that's what I'd much prefer to see, and that's the only way he's going to get back to world number one.
Yeah, but we'll see.
It's not a recent problem.
No.
I always go back to it because we were there the day in the K Club when he hit two of the greatest shots he's ever hit. But the reason he struggled and needed to hit those shots was that his approach play all day in that final round against Danny Willett was contending with him, maybe Russell Knox was there, so two good players. But you're watching him, and he had to grind that one out. Nothing was happening for him with his approach play. So this is a constant problem. What about Bryson? Did you see his latest video?
No.
So he put this up on his social media. He's back in training. He's had his very short break, and fortunately for him, it looked as though it was with his private jet sponsor that he put this just completely organic video.
Is it NetJets? Is that the one?
It may well be NetJets. A lot of them are with NetJets, unless of course he has to go elsewhere. I think there was a Bentley in there as well, who may be another one of his sponsors. But basically, he ends with, the journey for 215 miles per hour has begun.
Wow.
So is he talking about the car, or is he talking about himself?
He's talking about himself. But that NetJets thing, the way you see it on all the players? So what most of them are is the pro buys the hours off NetJets, but to wear the logo, they get a seriously reduced hourly rate. Ah, right. So NetJets.
Who was the best sponsor you ever had, Peter?
It's very clever.
Who was the most beneficial sponsor, aside from News Talk, of course?
Absolutely, yeah. No, we won't go down that road.
You're still reaping the benefits of that now.
Yes, absolutely.
Here you are.
Yeah.
Who was your best?
I won't answer that one.
You won't answer your best sponsor?
No, because you'd leave somebody out. No, I wouldn't.
Yeah. Well, what was the one with the, obviously certain sponsors give you certain amounts of money in terms of perks? Did you ever have a private jet sponsor?
No, Jesus, no, never. No, never. I remember I got a few lifts in private jets, all right, but no. And
how does that work? Because I often you'll see Poulter and McDowell or Lawrie or whoever else sharing a private jet. Is that is there a gentleman's agreement that I'll pay for this one and you pay for the next one? Or if you're hitching a ride on the private jet, are you expected to chip in?
No, I would always offer to do trolley dolly, was about as much as I was going to offer. So, no, you'd go, give us a lift home. And that would be about it. So that would be from Mr. Harrington, the odd time. And Shane, I remember going with Shane to Switzerland once. But mainly Porrick. So Harrington Air, was very good to me a few times.
I guess offering to pay for the fuel is a different proposition in a
absolutely,
yeah. Here's 20 quid.
I get the taxi home when we land.
I remember playing up in the Scottish Open and up in Inverness, And Sunday was a whole mess of a week because of the water, rain, and there was golf course was flooded. Eventually, anyway, Sunday came and I was going to be not close to Pádraig, and he had to leave straight away. And then I got lucky enough because it was rain delayed, and then they had to do a U-draw. So I was right beside him, which was great. So we finished the round, got into plane, and unfortunately Damien was just that little bit out at the time. He was maybe an hour difference. And I remember we took off in Inverness, and you took over the golf course, and there was McGrain finishing the 18th as we were taking off over the golf course. And I was home like in 35 minutes, and it took McGrain 24 hours to get home.
Oh my God.
So sometimes it's very beneficial to have friends in high places.
I can't say I've travelled much privately. Is it that you just rock up to the airport, don't have to deal with queues? You can be there 15 minutes before your flight, straight through, easy, or no? No,
it's pretty easier than that. You drive to the steps of the plane, you get out of the car, you get onto the plane, and that's it.
That's it?
That's it.
Oh my God.
And when you got off the plane and you went back home and you woke up the next day, did you think, I'm going to practice my ass off because I want a bit of that? Or were you thinking, well, actually, it's quite handy that Harrington's doing all the practicing and I get to...
No, I always wanted a bit of that. I've always wanted to, have my own private jet. But no, I wasn't good enough, unfortunately.
Well, I'll tell you what, Peter, if they give the go-ahead for the driving ranges to open the next 6 weeks...
But a lot of the players have bought a private jet or gone halves on one and then realised, actually, it's just too expensive, haven't they? Few of them have had to sell.
There was two in particular. Lee Westwood and Darren Clark bought one together. And it was the time that they were having very similar schedules in America. And then, unfortunately, Lee's trajectory was like that, going, way up and being well up the world rankings, and Darren's fell the other way. So all of a sudden, they weren't playing in the same tournaments and they weren't going to the same events. And that's where it became difficult.
Okay. Yeah, I remember that.
But I know the only person I know who ever made a ton of money out of owning a private jet was Ernie Els. And he bought one exceptionally cheap in South Africa off somebody and sold it for way more than he ever paid for it.
Wasn't Ernie's private jet legendary? Like, that was the one he wanted to get on.
Oh, I would never on that one, yeah.
El said it ran on Heineken, not fuel.
Yeah, there was some great stories that he used to stand up on landing and pretend to be a bird, coming into land. And if the pilots banged the plane down, they got awful abuse. They had to land it really, really, really softly. So, but there's the life of private jets.
Does Tiger not own a private jet?
Yes.
Yeah.
He did. He did.
Yeah.
I don't know whether he still does. But majority of people rent them.
Yeah.
As the old saying goes, if it flies,
that's
floats, or rent it.
I heard that argument made about those kind of super yachts, is that like buying one outright is just madness. Just rent or lease, because as soon as you have it, you want a bigger one, and there's always an update, and so same with private jets. But
I'll never have that problem, Fionn.
No, I was going to say I've never been on one. I've had the experience of, just as a travel writer, of at Dublin Airport there is a terminal for private flyers, and so I've had the experience of going through it just to see what the experience was like without ever getting on a plane on the other side, on the air side. And the idea was, I think you can pay for the experience, or you could have at the time. I think it was like 250 quid or something. And it's really convenient. You have your own little lounge, and then like 2 minutes before boarding, you go through your own little metal detector and your passport control, and then you're on the plane, and you never have to come near the hoi polloi. Unless, of course, if you're landing at Baldonnel, and then it's a whole other thing altogether.
I think they're pretty much like cars. There's always one going to be better than the other until you get up to, let's put it this way, Nathan and Joe's boss has an exceptionally nice one. So
Jared's doing well for himself, isn't he? Jeez, well, yeah.
Jared,
Fair play.
Yeah,
Fair play.
Mcllroy.
Fair play. Yeah, he's doing well for himself.
Absolutely.
I didn't realise, but well done, Jared. Joe, to finish up.
Yeah.
To go full circle.
Well, I was going to just mention, and we can literally just mention Jason Kokrak.
He was great.
Win the CJ Cup. 233 events. The man has made $15 million. He's been in 13 majors, had never won, and he beat Sandra Schauffele by 2 strokes. Good man, Jason, who's usually amazing with the driver and not so good with the putter, but he decides to be good at everything this week.
Knew the course inside out by all accounts.
Right, okay. That helps the putting.
Yeah, Vegas, likes his gambling, spends a lot of time there, and that's where he does a little bit of practice.
Okay.
So
he must have done a good bit of practice.
I was watching, so when I was watching the golf, I realized that a number of years ago, so every year, except for this year, I go to a conference in the US called IPW, where outbound tour operators, hoteliers, everybody involved in tourism in the US has like a 4 or 5 day conference usually under a massive roof, and international journalists attend looking for stories, etc. And it was in Vegas, and there's always like some nice little things going on. And one of them was one year there was a round of golf, and it was at Shadow Creek. And I was like, holy moly, I've been on this course before. I played 9 holes here before. It's gorgeous. Holy moly, it's gorgeous.
Fionn, why only 9?
Because that was the only thing that they were giving media that day. Another year we played the Wynn course, which is also lovely. And I was looking at it going, why do I? And then it dawned on me. So this must have been maybe 8 or 9 years ago or whatever. Yeah, and it was kind of a little tease. So part of the thing for those media that are interested in golf is that 9 holes on Shadow Creek, and I can't remember if we played the front 9 or the back 9, but it was a classic Vegas experience where, you know, we all rented clubs, and you know, you didn't have to touch anything other than the golf clubs from the moment you arrived to the moment you left. It was very much as the 1% live, and I was just like, oh my God. Yeah, it was great. Really good fun. Played rubbish, but who cares?
So Nathan, who won the giveaway?
I thought you were picking a winner. Do you want me to pick someone now live on air?
Well, whoever you like. Just don't pick any Joe's friends.
Again. Your friend was happy with that, was he? Did we got a good entry?
Well,
since you got enough publicity. I'm going to give it to Kieran Egan.
Okay.
He says lessons are needed, and correctly said that John Catlin won the Irish Open. Well done, Kieran. Hopefully you get to go over the next 6 weeks. I mentioned, Joe, to go full back circle to where we started, and obviously with courses closing. Good point from Kieran Harron, who says, should have had the position nailed down in April or May and got all assurances and promises when the pressure was off. Negotiating in the face of a lockdown was never the right time to get a reasonable deal. People pay big money full time to plan for these things. That is an issue, and maybe that did happen, but it does feel for an awful lot of people that the second wave seems to have come upon us very quickly, and that we're not in much of a better position than we were 8-9 months ago in so many different aspects of life.
Yeah, it's amazing the way that's happened. I mean, I know it took all of us a bit by surprise on that Sunday 2 weeks ago when it came through that Tony H was back and he wanted full lockdown, and all of us were like, what? But it shouldn't have taken those working behind the scenes by surprise, because we were told it was coming eventually. And so it does seem there's been a bit of a scramble since then, you know, a week of the government saying we're not going into level 5, and then this week saying, okay, we do have to go in, and it has all felt a bit rushed and haphazard, and that's been part of the difficulty for people, you know. Let's leave it there. So we have Sherwood this week. We can look back on that. We're 2 weeks out from the Masters. We might start doing some Masters preview, nostalgia type stuff in the next couple of weeks.
Yeah.
As ever.
And finally, Joe, more breaking news.
Yes, more breaking news.
Stephen Donnelly has just been talking in the Dáil and said they will not be revisiting the level 5 restrictions to allow golf or tennis. Nobody's getting an exemption.
Yeah, I mean, they can't. As you said, then the next batch are through saying, well, if golf and tennis are in, and it never ends. Golf Weekly is with thanks to Now TV, our sponsors. Stream your sport in your terms. Masters in 3 weeks, Premier League, EFL, Serie A, and so on. My thanks to Peter Lawrie at Spawell. Peter, thinking of you. It's not easy. It's tough for everyone they're concerned. So Peter Lawrie at Spawell, Nathan Murphy and Fionn Davenport will talk to you next week.
Thanks, guys.
OTB Sports Golf Weekly with Now TV. Stream the Premier League, Serie A and EFL Championships live on Now TV. Your sport on your terms.